Welcome to Wisdom for the Present, where we take ancient truth and bring it into clear, modern understanding. This episode uses AI-generated narration based on human-researched and written material.
Right, so let's jump right in.
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine you are 120 years old.
Wow.
Right, and you have spent the last 4 decades of your life dragging this chaotic, rebellious, and honestly deeply traumatized group of people through a literal valley of death.
Just 40 years of pure stress.
Pure stress. You have been the visionary, the crisis manager, the chief mediator, and, the target of literally every single complaint.
Which I'm sure there were plenty of.
Oh, endless complaints. But now, finally, the dust settles. You're camped on the plains of Moab. You can, smell the water of the Jordan River.
That close.
You look across, and the finish line, the ultimate destination you've been promising this entire time, is just right there in plain sight.
It's finally happening.
Exactly. But there is a catch. A really massive, heartbreaking catch. You are not going to cross that river. Yeah. You are about to die, and your people are going to have to make this monumental, identity-altering transition without you.
It is really one of the most striking, just dramatic setups in all of ancient literature.
It really is.
Because we're looking at the final addresses of Moses, right? This unparalleled historical and cultural figure standing on the absolute brink of his own end.
And the mission of our deep dive today isn't to look at this as just some dusty theological lecture.
No, not at all.
When you strip away the centuries, what you actually find embedded in this narrative is a profound masterclass in leadership.
Right. It's incredible. We are going to explore the excruciating psychology of succession, the brilliant, almost manipulative ways leaders must implant memory, and the historical cycle of how prosperity basically destroys human character.
Which is a fun one.
Oh, very fun. And of course, the quiet dignity of a well-orchestrated exit. We're taking the core wisdom of this ancient farewell and holding it up as a mirror to how you, the person listening to this right now, lead your family, manage your career, and navigate the transitions of your own life.
So we start right at that agonizing moment of transition. Moses stands up in front of this massive assembly of people and announces his retirement.
A huge moment.
Huge. He says, I am 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. And then he publicly hands the reins over to his protege, Joshua.
Right, the passing of the baton.
Yeah, but there's a glaring contradiction in the text that we have to address immediately.
There is, yeah.
Moses claims he can no longer go out and come in, which, is an ancient idiom that essentially means going about your daily business.
Basically saying, I can't do the job anymore.
Right. It sounds like his body is failing, like he's just too physically exhausted to do the daily grind. Yet, if you flip just a few pages toward the very end of his story, the text explicitly states that at the time of his death, his eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated.
He was completely fine.
Yeah, he was in full possession of his physical and mental faculties. So if he isn't physically incapable, why on earth is he stepping down?
And that tension is exactly what makes this such a profound study in leadership.
Oh, okay, unpack that.
Well, if we look at the work of Matthew Henry, he's a highly influential 17th century historian and commentator whose analysis focuses really deeply on the psychology of these ancient figures. He points out that Moses isn't stepping down because of biological decay.
Right, his hind is sharp.
His body is strong. He is stepping down because his specific season of usefulness has reached its boundary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Henry notes that a full stop has been put to his utility in this specific role. I mean, he is a wilderness leader. He forged them in the desert.
Right, the survival phase.
Exactly. But the skills required to survive a desert are entirely different from the skills required to conquer and settle a new land.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And Moses is demonstrating a level of self-awareness that is honestly exceedingly rare. He recognizes that his chapter is over, and he refuses to cling to the title simply because he still has the physical energy to hold on to it.
I see the parallel, but I kind of want to push back on that a little bit.
Go for it.
In the modern business world, we talk a lot about founder syndrome.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
It's the visionary CEO who builds a startup from a garage, but just doesn't have the operational skills to run a massive publicly traded corporation.
Right, they're the idea person, not the manager.
Exactly. Usually that founder has to be practically forced out by the board because they refuse to leave. But what if the founder is still genuinely the smartest, most capable person in the room?
Which Moses arguably was.
Right. Isn't it a disservice to the community for Moses to step away when his natural force is not abated?
That is the natural modern objection for sure. But it assumes that the ultimate goal of a leader is maximum personal output.
Oh, interesting.
The text actually suggests a different paradigm entirely. The ultimate goal of a leader is the enduring health of the community.
Not just their own productivity.
Exactly. If a highly capable leader refuses to step aside, they create this massive shadow. The next generation, Joshua in this case, never learns to bear the full weight of responsibility.
They just remain perpetual assistants.
Right. They never actually lead. By stepping down while he's still capable, Moses is modeling the ultimate form of humility.
He's orchestrating a controlled institutional transition.
Yes, rather than leaving a chaotic vacuum that would inevitably happen if he just, worked himself into the grave.
Which happens so often today.
It really does. He publicly empowers Joshua, transferring his authority right in front of everyone, so there is zero ambiguity about who was in charge.
That makes a lot of sense. He passes the baton while he still has a firm grip on it, rather than waiting until it slips from his dying hands.
Exactly.
And he doesn't just hand over the title, he tries to institutionalize the culture itself.
Which is the hardest part.
It is. So he writes down the law, hands it to the priests and the elders, and establishes this fascinating protocol known as the 7-year rule.
This part is brilliant.
It really is. He orders that at the end of every 7 years, during a specific festival, this law must be read out loud to absolutely everyone, men, women, children, and foreigners living among them.
Yes, and the timing of that reading is critical to understanding its psychological impact.
Why is that?
He commands this to happen during the Feast of Tabernacles. This was an annual autumn harvest festival where the people would literally leave their permanent homes and live in temporary shelters or tents for a week.
To remember their vulnerability in the wilderness.
Right. But Moses adds a layer to this. He says it must be read during this festival in the 7th year. In this ancient legal code, the 7th year was the year of release.
Right, a radical economic reset.
Exactly. Debts were systematically forgiven, indentured servants were set free, the land was left to rest. It was just a massive societal sigh of relief.
Wow.
And the 19th century theologian and commentator Albert Barnes points out the brilliance of this timing. By reading the foundational moral law during the year of ultimate liberty and economic freedom, Moses is inextricably linking the two concepts.
Oh, I see. He's essentially saying, you are free, but your freedom only survives if it is tethered to a shared moral reality.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Freedom without a moral framework isn't liberty, it's anarchy.
Yeah, it just falls apart.
And notice who is specifically required to be in the audience. The text singles out the children who have not known anything.
The next generation.
Right. Institutions, families, and societies often just assume that the next generation will automatically absorb the values of the founders through sheer osmosis.
Which never works.
Moses knows that is a fatal assumption. By forcing the entire society to stop their daily economic grind every 7 years and listen to the foundational principles, he is building a bulwark against generational amnesia.
He is ensuring that the why behind their civilization survives the demographic turnover. Think about how vital that is for anyone trying to build something lasting today. Whether you are running a company, managing a community organization, or just trying to establish a healthy culture in your own family.
You have to be intentional.
You do.
Yeah.
You have to realize that the people coming in, the new hires, the younger generation, they have not known anything of your early struggles. They weren't in the garage when the company started.
They weren't there during the lean years.
Right. If you don't build in a systematic, unignorable reset where you explicitly restate your core values, your culture will just drift.
It's guaranteed to drift.
So there is a very real question to carry with you right now. When is your 7-year reset?
That's a great question.
Do you have a deliberate, scheduled time where you stop the daily machinery and remind everyone involved exactly why you are doing what you are doing?
It is a critical organizational habit. But what is absolutely fascinating is that right after Moses establishes this incredibly logical, systematic framework for the law, the narrative takes a really dark and unexpected turn.
Oh yeah, it gets bleak.
It does. God essentially pulls Moses aside and gives him an unvarnished prediction of the future. The message is, Moses, as soon as you are dead, These people are going to break the covenant.
No sugarcoating at all.
None.
Yeah.
They're going to chase after other gods. They're going to become corrupt, and everything you just built is going to fracture.
Basically, failure is guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And the proposed solution to this future apostasy is where things get truly strange. To combat this future rebellion, God doesn't command Moses to write another legal textbook or set up a heavier police force or draft a new constitution.
No.
God tells Moses to write a song.
This is one of those moments that demands a pause, honestly. If the people are going to fail and God knows they are going to fail, why on earth is a song the proposed remedy?
It sounds absurd on the surface.
It does. What is a melody going to do against total societal collapse?
It speaks volumes about the ancient understanding of human cognition, an understanding that, by the way, modern neuroscience completely validates. Oh yeah. Human wisdom has devised many ways to record truth. We carve laws into stone, we write exhaustive historical volumes, we draft complex philosophical treatises.
Right.
But a song operates on an entirely different neurological pathway. As Albert Barnes notes in his commentary, utilizing poetry and music for teaching purposes was a masterstroke of ancient pedagogy.
Because it sticks differently.
Exactly. When you read a list of laws or a logical argument, your brain engages its critical argumentative faculties. You look for loopholes, you argue back.
Your defenses go up.
Right. But a melody basically bypasses the cognitive bouncers at the door of your brain. It slips past your defenses and lodges itself directly into the emotional centers of your memory.
We experience this all the time today. You can probably sing the lyrics to a commercial jingle you haven't heard since you were 10 years old.
Complete with the exact inflection.
Exactly. Even if you can't remember the password you created for your email yesterday, the melody acts as a carrier wave for the information.
That's a great way to put it. The melody carries the medicine. Matthew Henry explains that this song wasn't meant to magically prevent them from making bad choices. God is giving them a diagnostic tool for the aftermath.
For when things fall apart.
Right. When the people inevitably abandon their ethical foundation, which the song repeatedly refers to as the rock, and when their society begins to crumble as a result, this melody will still be playing in their heads.
Like an earworm they can't get rid of.
Exactly. When the legal texts are lost or ignored, the song will survive in the mouths of their children. It is designed to act as a haunting, inescapable mirror.
So when they hit rock bottom, the lyrics will suddenly make sense.
Yes, helping them recognize their exact failure and guiding them back to their foundational principles.
The lyrics of this specific piece of music, the Song of Moses, contains some of the most striking, visceral imagery in the entire text.
The imagery is incredible.
And there's one metaphor in particular that I really want to dissect because it is deeply uncomfortable but profoundly relevant.
Let's do it.
The song compares the way God cared for the people in the wilderness to the way an eagle cares for its young.
The eagle metaphor.
Yeah, the text says the eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings.
It sounds beautiful.
On a superficial level, it sounds lovely and protective. But if you actually look at the mechanics of what an eagle is doing when it stirs up its nest, it is an incredibly violent and disruptive act.
It is a stunning, multi-layered metaphor. And it perfectly encapsulates the precise balance of challenge and support required for genuine growth.
How so?
Well, consider the reality of an eagle's nest high on a cliff. The mother builds the structure out of sharp thorns, jagged twigs, and heavy branches.
Not very comfortable.
No, but she lines the inside with soft moss, leaves, and her own down feathers, so it becomes incredibly comfortable.
Right.
But when the eaglets reach a certain size, that comfort becomes a fatal liability. If they stay in the nest, they will eventually starve. They literally have to learn to fly.
So she has to force them out.
Exactly. So the mother eagle begins to stir up the nest. She literally uses her talons to rip out the soft down, the moss, and the leaves. She exposes the sharp, agonizing thorns that were hidden underneath.
She makes it miserable.
She makes the nets deliberately, painfully uncomfortable.
See, I have to interject here because this is where the analogy gets really dangerous if we apply it to modern leadership or parenting.
How do you mean?
I have worked for managers who thought they were stirring the nest, but in reality, they were just creating chaotic, toxic work environments.
Oh, right. The manufactured chaos.
Exactly. They would constantly shift goals, manufacture artificial crises, or pit employees against each other under the guise of keeping everyone on their toes or fostering grit.
Yeah, that's awful.
At what point does stirring the nest just become organizational abuse?
That is a crucial distinction. And the text actually protects against that misinterpretation if you read the rest of the verse.
Okay, what am I missing?
Well, a toxic manager rips up the nest and walks away to watch the chaos. That is abuse. The eagle, however, introduces discomfort with a specific life-saving goal: getting the eaglet into the air.
Okay.
And the intervention doesn't stop with the disruption. Once the eagle is forced out of the nest by the discomfort, the mother fluttereth over her young. She flies in front of them, demonstrating the very skill she is demanding of them.
So she's leading by example.
Yes. And when that young, weak eaglet inevitably falters, gets exhausted, and begins to plummet toward the rocks below, the mother doesn't let it crash.
Right, the wings.
The text says she spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them. She swoops underneath and catches the eaglet on her massive wings, bearing its weight until it recovers enough to try again.
Okay. The disruption is paired with an absolute safety net.
Completely changes the dynamic.
It really does. It isn't cruelty. It is highly calibrated development. The discomfort is the catalyst, but the unyielding support is what actually enables the growth.
Precisely. And this was the exact dynamic the Israelites experienced. They were pulled out of the comfortable but deadly nest of Egyptian slavery.
The wilderness was the open air?
Right. It was the harsh air where they had to learn the responsibilities of freedom. But every time they plummeted when they lacked water or food or direction, that foundational support swooped in to catch them.
If we translate that to our own lives, it forces a massive reevaluation of the painful disruptions we face.
It absolutely does.
Think about your own reality right now. We all have a natural tendency to seek absolute comfort. We line our nests. We get comfortable in a job that doesn't challenge us, in a relationship that has grown stagnant, in a daily routine that basically asks nothing of us.
We want the down feathers.
We do. And then suddenly the nest gets stirred, you get laid off, a massive shift in your industry renders your current skill set obsolete. A health scare upends your routine.
And in the moment, it feels like an unmitigated tragedy.
It feels like we are victims of a cruel universe. But if you look back at the most significant periods of growth in your life, almost all of them were preceded by the nest being violently stirred.
The comfort had to be removed.
Exactly. So you could learn to fly in a new capacity. So the reflection for you here is vital. Where in your life are you currently feeling the thorns?
Instead of just complaining about it.
Right. Instead of complaining about the discomfort, can you reframe this painful disruption as the necessary catalyst forcing you to develop a strength you didn't know you had?
It is a really powerful paradigm shift. But as we move deeper into the Song of Moses, the tone shifts drastically.
From the eagle's wings to something much darker.
Yeah. The beautiful imagery of protective wings gives way to a blistering, almost terrifying warning. And this brings us to one of the most critical psychological insights in the entire text: the hidden, corrosive perils of prosperity.
Let's talk about that.
In the song, Moses reminds the people of their origins. He says they were found in a waste-howling wilderness, but they are being brought into a land of staggering, unimaginable abundance.
The promised land.
Right. The poetry describes it as land yielding honey out of the rock, the fat of lambs, the finest wheat, and the pure blood of the grape.
They are going from zero to absolute luxury.
Literally overnight,
Right.
generationally speaking.
And you would think the natural human response to that kind of salvation and abundance would be overwhelming, perpetual gratitude. You would think they'd be the most humble, thankful people on earth.
You would hope so.
But what does the text say actually happens?
The text uses a hauntingly vivid phrase. It says, "But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked."
Jeshurun.
Jeshurun is a poetic, affectionate name for Israel. It translates roughly to the upright one. The upright one became heavy, complacent, and rebellious. The poetry expands on this, saying they grew thick, they were covered with fatness, and in that state of total security, total luxury, and absolute satiation, they completely forgot the foundational principles that got them there.
And turned to new gods.
Yes. They turned to new gods that came newly up.
Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. That phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Right.
It reminds me of a well-fed ox that suddenly decides it just doesn't want to pull the plow anymore.
Exactly.
So it kicks at the farmer who feeds it. But I want to pause on the philosophical implication of this because it feels incredibly counterintuitive to the modern mind.
What do you mean?
We spend our entire lives, our whole careers, sacrificing, saving, and grinding for the express purpose of achieving comfort.
Financial security, abundance.
Right. We want the honey out of the rock.
Yeah.
But this text is arguing that achieving that success is actually the most dangerous psychological state a human being can enter.
It is the ultimate paradox of human achievement. And Matthew Henry captures it brilliantly in his commentary. He observes that security and sensuality are the most common, tragic abuses of plenty.
Sensuality meaning indulgence.
Right. When human beings are full, when every physical need is met without struggle, when the bank account is overflowing, when there is no existential threat, we tend to grow unwieldy.
The friction is gone.
The friction of survival that kept our character sharp is completely removed. We become unmindful of the daily discipline required to maintain our integrity.
We get lazy.
And we proudly kick against the very constraints, rules, and ethics that built our success in the first place, viewing them as outdated restrictions on our autonomy.
We think we don't need the rules anymore.
Precisely. We abandon the ancient proven foundations and chase after new gods. And in our modern context, those new gods might not be wooden statues. They are the pursuit of relentless status, the worship of technological novelty, or an arrogant, self-centered worldview where we convince ourselves that we are the sole genius architects of our own prosperity.
It's the classic archetype of the spoil bear. Think about the trajectory of massive family fortunes or like dynasty businesses.
Oh, the three-generation rule?
Yes. The first generation is in the howling wilderness. They are desperate, they are hungry, they work 80-hour weeks, and they build a massive empire. They have intense character forged by hardship.
Because they had to.
Right. Then the second generation grows up watching that hardship, so they respect the wealth and maintain the empire.
They saw the struggle.
But the third generation is born into the penthouse. They have never known the wilderness. They are covered with fatness.
They inherit the honey and the wheat.
But they never had to build the muscle required to harvest it. So what do? They squander it. They become arrogant, entitled, and reckless, and they essentially destroy the foundation.
Exactly. And this isn't just a phenomenon of family businesses. If we look for comparative historical insight, this is a universally observed pattern in the rise and fall of almost every major world civilization.
Yeah, there is a famous historical adage that maps perfectly onto this text.
Hard times create strong men.
Right. Hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. And weak people create hard times.
It's a cycle. Moses is standing on the edge of the Jordan River, and he is eloquently predicting this exact civilizational cycle. The 40 years in the wilderness created strong people.
And they are about to enter the good times.
But Moses knows that the good times, the sheer lack of adversity, will inevitably make them weak, morally compromised, and arrogant, which will lead them straight back into hard times.
And the description of those hard times in the text is severe. This is where a lot of modern readers will hit a massive, uncomfortable obstacle.
The violent language.
Yeah, when the text describes the consequences of this arrogant prosperity, it uses language that is, frankly, terrifying.
It doesn't hold back.
Not at all. It talks about God sending burning heat, bitter destruction, the teeth of beasts, the poison of serpents crawling in the dust. It talks about the sword without and terror within. It even uses the phrase arrows drunk with blood. If you are a modern person reading this, it sounds absolutely unhinged. It sounds like a petty, vindictive, emotionally unstable deity throwing a violent temper tantrum just because people aren't paying enough attention to him.
I completely understand why someone would read it that way.
How do we extract any practical wisdom from such violent imagery?
This is where we must exercise careful discernment and read the text with an understanding of its literary genre. We are reading an ancient, highly emotional, lyrical poem.
So it's not a legal document?
No, not at all. As Albert Barnes points out, the purpose of this intense, shocking language is to pierce through the thick armor of complacency. You cannot whisper polite warnings to a society that is drunk on its own success. You have to shout.
That makes sense.
We should read these descriptions, the venom, the beasts, the arrows, as literal magical punishments hurled down from the clouds by a petulant god. Rather, this is an ancient way of expressing a profound, inescapable law of moral physics.
Moral physics, I like that.
When a society becomes entirely consumed by selfish indulgence, when the wealthy hoard resources, when the justice system is corrupted by comfort, and when the foundational social contract is abandoned in favor of new gods of greed, the society will fracture.
It breaks from the inside.
The venom, the beasts, and the terror within represent the natural, logical, catastrophic consequences of a civilization collapsing under the weight of its own moral decay. The violence is the inevitable result of a people who have lost their ethical center.
Okay, that reframes it entirely. It's not a divine lightning bolt. It is the structural collapse of a skyscraper because the owners decided to remove the foundational steel beams to make more room for a luxury lobby.
That is a perfect analogy.
You cannot cheat the physics of morality. If you remove the foundation, the roof will eventually cave in.
Every single time.
Which means the ultimate test of your character isn't necessarily how you handle failure or adversity. I mean, most people can white-knuckle their way through a crisis.
Adrenaline gets you through a crisis.
Right. The ultimate, most dangerous test of your character is how you handle your own success. Can you survive your own abundance?
That is the real test.
This requires brutal honesty. Look at your life right now and conduct a personal prosperity audit. Look at the areas where you have achieved comfort, financial security, or high status.
Have you waxed fat?
Yeah. Has that success caused you to lower your standards? Are you treating the people below you with less empathy because you feel insulated by your wealth? Have you abandoned the disciplined routines, the exercise, the reading, the careful listening that actually built your success? Are you, in your own way, waxing fat and kicking?
It is a sobering, uncomfortable diagnostic.
Yeah.
And given the absolute severity of that warning, you might expect Moses to just drop the microphone, leave the people to their doom, and walk away.
Right. Just wash his hands of them.
You would expect his final words to be a harsh, cynical scolding. But he pivots entirely. His final public act, found in the next part of the narrative, is to look at this deeply flawed, entirely predictable, stubborn people and offer them a blessing.
A blessing.
But what is fascinating here is the methodology of his blessing.
Yeah.
He doesn't stand up and offer a generic, one-size-fits-all benediction like, "May God bless you all, good luck in the promised land."
He goes tribe by tribe.
He goes tribe by tribe, and he delivers highly tailored, specific prophecies and blessings that acknowledge their unique geographical, economic, and temperamental realities.
Yes, the contrast between the tribes is brilliant. The most striking example for me is the juxtaposition of Zebulun and Issachar.
Oh, that's a great one.
Moses turns to the tribe of Zebulun and says, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out." And then he turns to the very next tribe, Issachar, and says, "Rejoice, Issachar, in thy tents."
Totally different blessings.
Completely. Zebulun is given a blessing that relates to maritime trade, the sea, shipping, and venturing out into the dangerous, chaotic world.
They're the merchant.
Right. But Issachar is given a blessing that relates to agriculture, staying home, tending the hearth, and finding peace in domestic stability.
This is a masterclass in nuanced leadership and the validation of diverse temperaments. Barnes and Henry both point out that these two tribes were geographic neighbors, but their lots in life were fundamentally different.
And Moses validates both of them.
Explicitly. The merchant sailing the tempestuous seas, risking capital and discovering new markets, is vital for the thriving of the nation. But the farmer, quietly plowing the inland fields, maintaining the food supply, and anchored to the local community, is equally vital.
They need each other.
The genius of the blessing is that it implicitly commands them not to envy one another. Issachar shouldn't sit in his tent and resent Zebulun's adventurous, lucrative voyages.
Right.
And Zebulun shouldn't stand on the deck of his ship and look down on Issachar's quiet, predictable agrarian life. They are both blessed in their distinct callings.
I look at this and I immediately think about modern corporate culture, which often gets this completely wrong.
Oh, almost always.
How many companies try to force every single employee into the exact same mold? They take a brilliant, introverted, highly meticulous data analyst who thrives in their tents, and they try to force them to be an extroverted, aggressive sales lead who goes out.
It destroys the employee and harms the company.
A truly great manager, a great leader, looks at their team and understands that they don't manage everyone the same way. They bless the ships and they bless the tents. They recognize the specific genius of the individual in front of them.
Exactly. And that tailored approach is even more evident when Moses blesses the tribe of Asher.
This one is strange.
It is. He gives Asher a very strange promise. He says, "Thy shoes shall be iron and brass." which is immediately followed by one of the most famous comforting phrases in the entire text. And as thy days, so shall thy strength be.
I have to say, if someone gave me a pair of shoes made of solid iron and brass, I wouldn't consider that a blessing.
You know, it sounds terrible.
That sounds incredibly heavy, rigid, and painful to wear.
It does, until you understand the specific geography that Asher was assigned to inhabit. The tribe of Asher was settling in the far northern region of the land, which was characterized by steep, rugged, rocky, mountainous terrain.
Oh, okay.
If you are climbing a jagged limestone crag, you cannot wear soft, comfortable silk slippers. The rocks will shred them, and your feet will be destroyed. You need impenetrable footwear. You need iron shoes.
So the blessing isn't promising them an easy path.
No, it is promising that they will be equipped precisely for the severe difficulty of their specific environment.
That perfectly contextualizes the second half of the phrase, as thy days, so shall thy strength be.
Yes, it is a profound promise of proportionality.
Proportionality, what do you mean?
You are not granted tomorrow's strength today. If you look at the mountain of problems you have to climb over the next year, you will feel completely overwhelmed because you only have today's strength.
That's so true.
But the promise is that on the specific day you face that rugged, exhausting terrain, on the day you have to strap on the iron shoes, you will be granted the exact measure of resilience, endurance, and power required to survive that specific 24-hour period.
Not a day early, not a day late.
Exactly.
That is deeply comforting. And Moses wraps up all of these individual, highly specific blessings with a sweeping, overarching truth. In verse 27, he says, "The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms."
That's beautiful.
It is the ultimate counterbalance to the terrifying warnings we discussed earlier. Yes, there are severe consequences for moral decay. Yes, the terrain will require heavy iron shoes. Yes, the nest will be violently stirred. But at the absolute bedrock of reality, underneath the chaos and the struggle, there is an unshakable foundational support that will not let you fall into nothingness.
It is a stunning note of grace to end his public ministry on. And the application here is twofold.
Let's hear it.
First, on a personal level. Are you exhausting your emotional energy comparing your tents to someone else's ships? Are you frustrated because you don't have the adventurous life of Zebulun, while ignoring the profound peace and necessity of your own domestic stability?
Finding joy in your own disposition.
Yes. How can you find joy, purpose, and dignity in your specific, unique disposition? And second, on an interpersonal level. Think about the next time you part ways with a team member, a colleague moving to a new job, or even a child leaving for college.
Don't just give them a generic good luck.
Right. Take the time to look at them, recognize the specific terrain they're about to face, and leave them with a tailored affirmation that highlights their unique strengths and equips them for their specific journey.
Give them their iron shoes.
Give them their iron shoes.
So the succession is complete. Joshua has the baton. The law has been established with a 7-year reset. The diagnostic song has been taught. The tribes have been individually blessed.
Everything is in place.
Moses has emptied himself out entirely. There is literally nothing left for him to do. The mission is finished. Which brings us to the final act of this epic life found at the very end of the text.
Chapter 34.
Yeah. Moses leaves the bustling camp on the plains. He walks away from the millions of people he led, and he begins a solitary climb up Mount Nebo to the peak of Pisgah.
The visual poetry of this moment is just staggering. This is the man who stood face to face with the Pharaoh of Egypt, demanding the release of an enslaved nation. This is the man who stretched his hand over the sea, who walked into the fire and smoke of Sinai to receive the law.
Who judged the disputes of millions.
And now he is just an old man, utterly alone, making a quiet, steep climb up a desert mountain.
When he reaches the summit, the text says God grants him a miraculous, sweeping, panoramic vision of the entirety of the Promised Land.
He sees everything.
The text meticulously lists the regions. He sees Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah stretching to the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev desert in the south, and the lush valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees. He sees the whole board.
The entire payoff.
And then God speaks to him one last time, saying, "This is the land, I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither."
Heartbreaking.
And there on the top of the mountain, Moses dies. The text adds a fascinating, mysterious detail. It says, God buried him in a valley in Moab, but no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day.
No one knows where he is.
The people down in the camp mourn for 30 days, and then Joshua takes the helm, full of the spirit of wisdom.
I have to say,
I have to admit, every time I read this, it hits me like a gut punch.
it does.
It feels deeply, profoundly unfair. Think about the sheer amount of stress, betrayal, and exhaustion this man endured. For 40 years, he dealt with people who wanted to stone him, who constantly complained about the food, who rebelled against his authority.
He sacrificed everything.
He dragged them through the heat and the sand, sacrificing his own peace, his own family life, his own sanity. And he finally gets to the edge. He can see the green valleys, he can see the milk and honey, and the door is slammed in his face.
He doesn't get to go in.
He doesn't get the payoff. He doesn't get to taste the fruit of his own agonizing labor. Isn't this just a fundamentally tragic, depressing ending to a legendary life?
It is entirely natural for a modern reader to feel that way, because we live in a culture that is utterly obsessed with personal outcomes.
We want the reward.
We believe the only valid reason to run a race is to personally cross the finish line, feel the tape break across your chest, and hold the trophy above your own head while the crowd cheers for you.
Right.
But Matthew Henry completely dismantles that modern assumption in his commentary. He argues that this ending is not a tragedy in the slightest. In fact, he uses a specific term to describe Moses' passing, and euthanasia.
Euthanasia?
Yes, which in its original ancient Greek etymology literally translates to a delightful good death.
A good death? How is that a good death?
Because Moses' vision was completely unclouded by selfish ambition. He had the ultimate profound satisfaction of knowing that the mission was successful.
The people were prepared.
Exactly. The next leader was empowered and in place. The land was ready for them. He had run his incredibly difficult leg of the relay race perfectly. Moses understood that he was a tool for a larger purpose, not the center of the universe.
He didn't need the trophy.
He didn't need to personally sit under the shade of the tree or eat the grapes to know that the vineyard was secure.
That reminds me of an old Greek proverb that says, "A society grows great when old men plant trees under whose shade they know they shall never sit."
Yes, Moses planted the ultimate tree.
He brought them to the border, he pointed them toward the future, and he was completely content with the view of what will be without needing to possess it or consume it himself. It completely redefines what a successful life actually looks like.
It does. And that philosophy of utter self-effacement perfectly explains the strange final detail about the unknown grave.
I was wondering about that. Why did God hide Moses' body?
Why bury him in a secret valley where no one could ever find him? The historical commentators universally agree that it was a deliberate act to prevent the Israelites from turning Moses' grave into a shrine for idolatry.
Oh, to stop them from worshiping him.
It is the ultimate final act of boundary setting. Throughout his life, Moses continually pointed the people toward the law, toward their ethical responsibilities, toward God. But human nature is lazy.
Very lazy.
We don't want to follow abstract principles. We want to worship charismatic heroes. If the Israelites had access to his body, they would have built a massive monument. They would have turned his bones into relics. They would have worshipped the man, and in doing so, they would have completely forgotten the message.
It would have missed the whole point.
By hiding his grave, Moses is forced to disappear entirely. The community is forced to move forward relying on the shared values, the laws, and the systems he established, rather than clinging to a dead hero.
That is such a harsh and necessary blow to the human ego, especially today, where so much of leadership, politics, and business is entirely driven by the cult of personality.
We worship founders.
We do. We want to build monuments to ourselves. We want our names carved in stone on the side of a hospital wing. We want our legacy to be strictly attached to our individual identity.
But true, enduring leadership requires the exact opposite.
A truly successful life is one where you build something so structurally sound, so deeply rooted in shared values, that it can thrive completely without you. You lead your people to the border, you prepare them for the future, and then you gracefully step aside and disappear into the background.
You fade out.
So the practical question for you, listening to this, is piercing. Are you willing to plant a tree knowing you will never sit in its shade? Are you willing to pour your energy into a project at work, a legacy in your family, or a cause in your community, knowing that someone else is going to get the final credit and the ultimate reward?
Can you let it go?
Can you divorce your ego from your labor, ensuring that your organization or family relies on a shared moral foundation rather than a cult of personality built around your own charisma?
It is arguably the highest, most difficult level of human maturity to achieve. To be able to look out from the summit of your own Mount Nebo, to see the beautiful, thriving future you helped build, and to peacefully, joyfully let it go.
What an incredible journey we've taken today. We've looked at the profound humility required to step down when you are still capable. We've explored the neurological genius of teaching truth through a song. We've dissected the terrifying, corrosive cycle of prosperity and how success can destroy our character.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We've seen the beauty of leadership that tailors its blessings to the specific terrain of the individual. And finally, we've witnessed the quiet, egoless dignity of a truly good death.
A powerful ending.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last provocative thread to pull. At the very end of this narrative, the author adds a final, enduring epitaph for Moses. It says, "And there arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face."
Face to face.
We spend so much of our time and energy searching for complex life hacks. We read endless books on the 10 intricate strategies for success, the 7 habits of leadership, the complex frameworks for managing people.
Looking for shortcuts?
Always. But perhaps the ultimate secret to Moses' enduring vitality wasn't a framework at all. Perhaps his ability to let go of absolute power without an ounce of resentment, his ability to see the world with unclouded vision at the age of 120, and his profound peace on that mountaintop all came down to that one phrase.
You knew him face to face.
He lived his life with relentless, intimate, undefended, face-to-face honesty with his ultimate source of truth. He didn't hide. He didn't posture. He didn't let the trappings of his own leadership insulate him from reality. He knew exactly what his limits were because he regularly, intimately looked into the face of the limitless.
That's beautifully said.
So as you navigate your own wilderness, as you face your own career transitions, and especially as you deal with the dangerous comforts of your own prosperity, how often do you dare to strip away the noise, the ego, and the distractions, and look at your own deepest truths face to face?
Something to really think about.
That's the heart of this section. This is Wisdom for the Present, where understanding leads to clarity, and clarity shapes how we see and live. We'll see you in the next episode.